morning, Lionhearts. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? I hope you said well. I'm doing well. And if you're not doing well, I hope at least this vlog today will be fascinating enough that, it'll keep you entertained. Now, I've went to this man's grave before, but today we're going to talk about the kind of bizarre circumstances under the death of Superman, George Reeves. He was a hero to millions of kids. His show had ended in 1957, but in 1959, the year that he died, he got word that they were going to bring it back and that he was going to be doing another season, and yet somehow he would commit suicide. So they say. Like I said, there's a lot of bizarre circumstances to this, and George's own mother never believed that that's how he died, and she hired a private investigator to uncover some pretty interesting little facts. Today, we're going to talk about the death of Superman, George Reeves. Daze with Jordan the Lion. It begins right now. Good day to you too, sir. Are you a Superman fan? Here comes one of his buddies. So the man we would know as George Reeves, who ended up becoming famous for Superman, it's not actually a role that he really even wanted. It was kind of one of those things where he was out of work, and at the time he was digging cesspools for a living in between acting jobs. And he did see the bright side to this, is that he knew that since this was a crime fighter show and it was going to have an audience geared towards kids, that he could use this to be a good role model for kids. He would end up giving up smoking because he didn't want kids to ever see him smoking in the costume. He was also very passionate about giving back to underprivileged kids, and so he saw this as a way to marry the two. And eventually, during the years that they would have The Adventures of Superman, he would heavily influence the show from being a crime fighting show to becoming more of a show that taught life lessons for young kids. Now, George wasn't actually born George Reeves. He was born George Brewer in Iowa, and his parents ended up getting a divorce when he was very young. His mother moved him out here to Pasadena with her, and she met another man named Frank Basello, and he ended up adopting George and changing George's name to George Basello. You gonna find somebody to play with today? No, that's not Superman. It's just an airplane. Look at these two just hanging out. Now, growing up, George never knew of his first biological father. He just knew of Frank, and Frank was a very good role model for George. They were very close, and one point while he was growing up, his mother sent George off to visit relatives across the country, and while he was gone, she and Frank got a divorce. When George came back and asked where Frank was, she said that he had died, and basically left it at that. And then one day, while George was looking through some old photos, he saw a photo of her and his biological father and said, "Who is that?" And she said, "That's your real father," and then caught herself and said, "He committed suicide the day after you were born." So George never ended up looking for either father, and his mother was very, very close to him as he was growing up. Now, he would take an interest in boxing and want to be a boxer while he was in high school. However, his mother didn't like it. She said he was too good looking and didn't want him to have his face destroyed by boxing, so he decided to quit, and she influenced him into taking some classes at the Pasadena Playhouse to become an actor. He didn't really want to do it, but he just wanted to appease her, and then after a short bit of time, he was bit by the acting bug and ended up studying there for 5 years, becoming a Shakespearean actor. Now, while he was there, he ended up meeting another actress that he fell in love with. They got married, and then shortly thereafter, she met a richer man and left George, and George never spoke of her again. Meeting of the minds. Socializing is everything. Now, eventually, George Basello did get a contract with a studio, and when he was signing the contract, he was going to be making his first picture. He was going to be in Gone with the Wind. So when he signed the contract, they put in the contract that he had to dye his hair for the movie. What he didn't know was that in that contract that gave them the right to change his name, and without his consent they decided to change his name to George Reeves. That's how he ended up doing that. Now, he was in the movie, he got great reviews, but after that he really couldn't get much attention. He was doing bit parts here and there, and then did a military picture that got great reviews, but he got so into the picture he couldn't give up the thoughts of what he was feeling while making it, and he decided to leave acting for a while and to enlist in the military. Now, unfortunately for him, even though he enlisted with his real name, not George Reeves, they figured out that he had too much charisma and that he was an actor, and so they put him in the entertainment corps, and that's where he served his time. And then when he came out, the studio head that had some belief in him had passed away, and for years George would get by just making, you know, bit parts here and there, just enough to really just get by. Oh, there's a party going on. They all raced over there. Now, being that George was having trouble getting acting jobs, he did have to have some work done around his house. He had to have a cesspool dug, and when they came to give him an estimate, they told him $150. He said, is there any way that I can help dig it myself and save some money? So they gave him a $20 discount, and he stood out there for a couple of days digging with the other crew members. Now, his neighbor ended up needing the same job done, and George ended up offering to do it for $100 now that he knew what he was doing, and that's how he would make his living getting by while looking for roles, until he was asked to audition for Superman and the Mole Men, a movie that they were going to make in 1951 starring the comic book hero of Superman. So George didn't necessarily want to do it, but he went to the audition and then was cast in it. And even when he met the Lois Lane the first day on the set, he said, "Welcome to the bottom," meaning that he felt like this was just kind of last ditch in the acting world for someone who, you know, he had been told that he was too old or that he was not going to ever be able to be cast as a leading man. So to him, this was really, you know, all there was. This was the only option at the time. And he ended up seeing the bright side and making the best of it, like I mentioned. Now, Superman was a huge hit for a couple of years, and much like anything, the longer it goes, some of the magic goes away, the content gets watered down, the ideas run out, and he felt that way. He even said in the 5th season, he felt like, you know, this could end at any time, and then in the 6th season, they did get canceled. Now, he had trouble finding work after that for the next 2 years, and actually got kind of bitter because he felt like he had been chewed up and spit out by Hollywood and just been typecast as just this one character, and they didn't want to see him as anything else. However, in 1959, he found out that Kellogg's had purchased 1 season of The Adventures of Superman, so he was going to be going back to work for a pretty great year worth of an income.
Good morning.
Good morning. If he sees wrestling, he has to get involved. He loves it. So it's kind of strange what would happen that night. He would spend his day drinking and enjoying his day with friends, letting them know that he was going to be making Superman again. And then in the evening, it all changed. So John, I'm going to take everyone over to the house that George Reeves supposedly committed suicide in, but others aren't so sure. Now, there are many theories as to what happened. Suicide, murder. Some wonder why there were 2 bullet holes found inside of his bedroom. People that commit suicide by shooting themselves don't usually miss. And there was no gunpowder near his head, so we'll get into that when we get out to the house. When you're perched up here, that's usually a sign that you're ready to roll. Are you ready to roll, my friend? You're ready to go? Okay. That's some great artwork out here. I love it. June 16th, 1959. To everyone's surprise, George Reeves supposedly killed himself in the upstairs bedroom of this house. Now it's very surprising because no one happened to know that he was depressed. So that immediately raised some red flags. His best friend said he'd never been happier. He was supposed to get married a couple of days after this date. And yeah, he was in love. So why did he do it? Well, there was a little bit of a scandal that came out after. You see, for many years, George had actually purchased this house in the early 50s, and it was said that a woman named Toni Mannix perhaps was the one who paid for the deposit for this. And he had lived here that whole time. Now, Toni was the wife of a studio head for MGM, Eddie Mannix, and they had been having an affair for many years. Now, supposedly, Eddie knew about this from different books I've read. He knew about this and was okay with it. But George called it off because he had fell in love with Lenore Lemon and they wanted to get married. So apparently Toni didn't take this well and started harassing both of them continuously. Lenore and George would not call it off, and she even had a key to this place. So the night of his death, well, I mean, he was actually found in the morning, but what ended up happening was he had been celebrating that whole day that they were going to be making Superman again. And he had a friend over here, Robert Condon, and he and Lenore were drinking and having fun, and then he decided to call it a night and retire to his bedroom. Now, Lenore and Robert continued drinking, and then eventually, apparently, some people that were friends of theirs saw the light on, the porch light on, and thought that George was up, so they stopped to have a drink as well and joined Lenore and Robert, and it ended up bothering George. So George ended up coming down here and kind of yelling about, you know, I'm trying to sleep, can't you guys knock this off? And so he went back up to bed, and then they continued to party. So apparently Lenore said that she had had a premonition that he was going to shoot himself, and he went upstairs, and she said from downstairs they could hear a drawer open, and then they heard a shot. And when they went up there, George had shot himself in the head apparently, but the gun was laying at the bottom of his feet between his legs, and he was laying on his back. So it didn't make any sense. Now, in reading a lot about history of the movie studios back in that time, there was a group called the Fixers that MGM had, that if any kind of scandal could have possibly broke out, they would have people come out, clean up the site before the police were ever called, and then, you know, that's what would happen. So that was the theory, was that the Fixers had came and cleaned this up to make it look like a suicide. And even Howard Strickling, the head of publicity, said before he passed away that Eddie Mannix was the one that came in and shot George. But why? Well, because he had broken off with Toni. That's what was believed. You see, some people would think, oh, it's because he found out that they were having an affair, but apparently he knew about it and he was okay with it as long as Toni was happy. But once Toni wasn't happy, that's when Eddie got mad. But then some believed that Lenore had done it, and Lenore believed that Toni had done it. And apparently after this was done, Toni called Lenore and said, "They killed our boy, they killed our boy." Now, it just didn't make any sense. Like I said, it just didn't make any sense for him to kill himself when he just found out that he was going to be making a lot of money doing that season of The Adventures of Superman. So as it was investigated, they deemed it a suicide, and George's mother would not accept that. She did not believe that he would do that, and so she hired private investigators, hired a great attorney, and started investigating it. And when they came in and investigated, they found a second bullet hole in the wall, but they couldn't find the bullet. And they were saying, well, George was a really good shot, he was an excellent marksman, and people that commit suicide don't usually miss. So there was no gunpowder near his head, nothing that would indicate a true suicide. However, his mother was adamant about it and never gave up the fight for it. There was just too much involved that had very likely been altered so that the police could never get a full idea of what really happened here. But in George's will, he left everything to Toni Mannix. So some believe that Lenore heard him talking to Tony over the phone and he was having second thoughts about getting married, and that maybe that's why she did it, or Tony maybe came and snuck in while they were all partying because she had a key. But like I said, Howard Strickling said on his deathbed basically that Eddie Mannix was the one that shot George Reeves. So this was the one time that Superman could not evade a speeding bullet. What a bizarre story. And to this day, it's still accepted that it was a suicide officially, but most people don't buy that. That would have been his bedroom right up in there. He lived in this house most of the 50s. Now, we're not going to go to his gravesite today because I've already vlogged it. So if you'd like to see that, go on my channel and look for the grave of George Reeves Superman, and you'll see his final resting place and the very sweet plaque that his mother put on his ashes. Now, many of the people that have lived in this house since have reported to believing that it's haunted, to hearing George speaking in the home. And Toni Mannix did inherit this house. Like I said, she inherited everything. And when she decided to sell it, they had a hard time even finding people that would come and do a walkthrough to consider the house. So, kind of an eerie story to it. I'll keep my eye out. And one of the crazier little facts about this is that after the police had sealed up the room where he had died, shortly after, a day or two after, Lenore broke the seal, went in, and took traveler's checks that George had, and they never found him. All right, my friends, we're gonna call it a day. Thank you, Bunny Youngsman, Mark Morgan, and Barbara E. Malvin for becoming my newest Patreons. Hope you enjoyed this vlog today. If you want my honest opinion, I don't think he killed himself for a minute. I think it was definitely someone else, let's put it that way. And when they asked his best friends, Gig Young and Alan Ladd, they both said that they thought an unnamed woman had done it. Wonder why they kept their silence. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you all next time. Rest in peace, George Reeves, and goodbye.
Cause there's a grace by me.